everyone, and welcome back to another unit builder video. As I mentioned in my last summoning session, today's video is going to focus on Forrest, the new auto-demoted unit to be included in the recent Fire Emblem Fates banner. By this, I mean that Forrest will be available to summon from the 4-star colorless summoning pool, making him fairly accessible for anyone interested in plus 10ing him. With that being said, let's take a look at his base kit and get our first impressions out of the way. At 5 stars, level 40, Forrest neutral stats read as HP 39, attack 32, speed 26, defense 19, and resistance 35. It's worth mentioning that Forrest comes with a super boon in speed, but without some seriously high investment, his speed really won't be amounting to much. 26 speed is pretty low, so I imagine that he's not going to be doubling fairly frequently. His HP is 39, which is fine. 32 base attack for a healer is actually not that bad. It's tied with Brave Veronica, so it's a pretty solid place to start and can definitely be improved upon with the right skills. 19 defense is unfortunately though very fragile. You're definitely going to want to keep him as far away from physical damage as much as possible. But on the other hand, with 35 base resistance, Forrest has some serious potential in tanking through magic threats. Now, as far as Forrest's base kit goes, none of the skills are new, unfortunately. His base weapon is Panic Plus, which after combat inflicts panic on both the enemy and any foes within a 2-tile radius. For any new players out there, Panic neutralizes any bonuses on the unit, which can be incredibly handy with enemy teams that love to stack visible buffs. Panic Plus certainly isn't a new weapon, but it's a solid budget-friendly choice that offers him a little utility. For his assist, Forrest has Physic, which heals HP equal to 50% of his base attack. The nice part about Physic, of course, is that it has a range of 2 spaces, meaning that on top of being a cavalry unit with a 3-tile movement range, he can further heal allies that aren't even directly adjacent to him. So right off the bat, we see that Forrest is very support-oriented. For his special, he's got Heavenly Light, which when activated grants 10 HP to all allies across the map. With a cooldown cost of just 2, it's a fantastic special when in a pinch and definitely another solid option. Now in his A slot, Forrest comes with Fortress Resistance 3. Not gonna lie, I was definitely expecting a new cavalry unit to come with this skill, especially after we got Ferdinand with Fortress Defense 3 just last month. Much like before, this skill grants plus 5 base resistance at the cost of minus 3 base attack. Given his role, this actually isn't that bad a choice for his A skill. The obvious drawback is that his attack does take a hit, which of course decreases his overall healing output, but the difference in healing should be fairly marginal. What's particularly nice about Fortress Resistance 3 is that it puts him in a better position to run his C skill, Res Ploy 3. Ploy skills in general are a great debuff option for units with high base resistance. With this skill in particular, at the start of every turn, it inflicts minus 5 resistance to any foes within cardinal directions with less resistance than Forrest. It can be pretty handy with the right positioning and definitely another solid budget option. Okay, and that is it for Forrest's base kit. At a first glance, it seems pretty underwhelming. After all, Intelligence Systems does have a bad tendency of shafting male units, and while Forrest isn't anywhere near as decked out as any of the ladies of this banner, his kit synergizes and makes sense at the very least. That being said, let's go ahead and start figuring out how to actually build him. So for our first build, we're going to keep this build pretty budget friendly and really just make a few small tweaks to what's already been given to him. As you can see, we're keeping Panic Plus, but adding a Dazzling Staff Refine, which will prevent the foe from counterattacking. With this build in particular, we're mostly leaning into Forrest's support capability and ensuring that he heals and debuffs as much as possible without actually taking any damage himself. With this refine, he'll be able to get in on the enemy, inflict panic without any counterattacks, and hopefully get repositioned out of the way. As you can see, I'm keeping both Physic and Heavenly Light in place. Both of these skills are fairly flexible, but I find that staff units in general are pretty limited on the skills that they have access to, and so I see little reason to switch either of these out, especially when building him on a budget. That being said, we're also going to keep his native Fortress Resistance 3 and Res Ploy 3, but for some added debuffing potential, we're going to double in with a second Ploy skill in his S slot. Which kind of ploy you use is entirely up to you, but you can't go wrong with Attack Ploy to further help your team tank through any enemy counterattacks. And while we're talking about his S slot, it's worth mentioning that Fortress Resistance 3 is also available in the Sacred Seal Forge. So if you wanted to capitalize on his ability to tank through magical hits, you could run double Fortress Resistance 3 to give him plus 10 res overall. Just something to consider. And lastly, we come to his B slot, which I've decided to fill in with Guard 3. Like its name implies, Guard 3 inflicts guard on the enemy, slowing their special cooldown charge by 1 point per attack. It's a great effect, and although Guard is being built into so many weapons and skills nowadays, Guard 3 is still a fairly accessible skill that, when combined with Panic, further adds to Forrest's utility. Okay, and that is it for our budget build. It's not bad, I think. Panic plus Guard with a dazzling effect, double ploys for reliable debuffing, honestly, pretty solid for a budget build. However, for our second build, I want to go all in with some more expensive skills for anyone that's really hoping to turn Forrest into an offensive healer. Starting us off in the weapon slot, I've decided to go with Flash Plus. After combat, Flash inflicts an effect on the foe that prevents him from counterattacking, which can become pretty lethal fairly quickly if you've got allies ready to follow up. This weapon slot is honestly quite flexible though, but I decided to run with Flash since I have a spare Makoto lying around, and thought it'd be a really fun choice for an offensive build. As far as refines go, this ultimately depends on which skill you have available for your B slot. If you have Wrathful Staff fodder, then go for a Dazzling Refine. If you've got Dazzling Staff fodder, then go for a Wrathful Refine. Whatever works for you. And unlike our last build, which had a boon in resistance, we're gonna go all in on attack for this one. Now for his assist skill, I decided to throw in Restore Plus, just to mix things up. Physic is great, although what I like about Restore Plus is that it also neutralizes any penalties or negative status effects on your target ally. This can become especially useful when against any enemy teams that rely on stacking debuffs. Jumping over to his A slot, we've got Attack Res Push 4. I'm a huge fan of push skills as I think that they're some of the best skills available for staff users. Emphasis on available, since staff units don't have access to most offensive A skills. Unfortunately, the biggest caveat to using this skill is that at the time of recording this video, it's only available on Legendary Leaf. However, I do have hope that in the next few months it'll become available on a normal 5-star unit that we can summon and use for fodder. As an alternative though, Attack Speed Push 4 is certainly more accessible. I sort of already mentioned our B skill, but for any new players out there, Wrathful Staff is the choice for our B skill as it allows Forrest damage to be calculated like other weapons. By default, staff users only deal 50% damage, and so Wrathful Staff is the best way to mitigate this. In Forrest's C skill, you'll notice that I decided to keep Res Ploy, as I still think his res is high enough to activate against most enemies. However, this slot is also flexible, so feel free to shuffle in whatever skill you need to match the needs of your team. The last part to our build is our Sacred Seal, Brazen Attack and Resistance 3. Like all Brazen skills, this one requires our HP to fall below 80% in order for its effects to go off. This should be fairly easy to achieve thanks to Attack Res Push 4, which already whittles Forrest's HP down after every round of combat, putting us into Brazen range and allowing us to attack with a total of plus 14 attack and resistance. Love that. And that is it. That is our super fun offensive build that I came up with for Forrest, and not gonna lie, I'm actually kind of proud of it. I have no intentions of building Forrest, but I still can't decide on what build I want to go for with my Mercedes, so this is another option that I might seriously consider should I ever get my hands on a spare leaf. Anyway, lastly, here are what Forrest's stats look like when fully merged. I genuinely think that he's a fantastic merge project for anyone looking for a new healer, and considering how high he placed in last year's Choose Your Legends contest, I have no doubt that many people are also glad to be able to plus 10 him so easily. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I'm sorry this one took longer for me to finish than I had hoped. I'm not gonna lie, I've been feeling a little uninspired with my channel lately. Not sure if it's a creative block or something, but it's definitely taken me a lot longer to motivate myself to finish this one. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you found any of this useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section. Of course, you're also more than welcome to join our Discord server where we talk about unit building, memes, summoning, and all things related to FEH. So the invite link to that is in the description below. Anyway, that is it for today. I hope all of you are staying safe and sane. Happy saving, happy summoning, and take care. Bye.